Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I'm going to show you how to make this sound. Yeah. Before I get started, I want to mention that I do offer private lessons, and normally there's a sale that goes on during the month of July for it brings the prices half off. And this year, I've been doing the sale all year, and it will continue to do the sale all year. So if you're interested in lessons and you wanted to wait for a sale, now's the time. Check out the description of this video for a link for more information, along with this link to downloading this preset and this FLP if you need to. Let's continue. So I opened up this and I showed you this because this is actually the core of the idea. This is two harmers into a lot of combs and it's compressed. Cool beans. But in the beginning, I wanted to make a sound that specifically satisfied its own variation requirements. That it would be its own main mover and its own variations, so that it could conceivably be the only bass in the song. Not unlike if you were a bassist in a band. I said conceivably because even if it could actually solve that and be that purpose, you would still want more stuff because you always want more stuff. Who doesn't want more stuff? But this is actually its own group of stuff. And I whittled down what it is I care about in terms of modulations and variations from a sound, and I made this. There's this little page of buttons. So to run down what it is conceptually, main mod, this is the main element that'll be the primary thing that controls the rhythm of your sound. Does it go da-da-da or wah-wah-wah? That's something that this knob is controlling. This thing controls just the next nature of it. If it has a kind of secondary B part to the main move, that's what this controls. The C thing, slightly higher, bigger changer to the sounds that you don't want to have all the time, but some of the time. And then there's the big guys that change core large aspects of the sounds to the point where it might as well be a different sound. And this lets us write lines that sound like we just made 4 or 5 different sounds. But also they have the quality of sounding like they're together, that they belong, that they're all in the same room, all that stuff, because it's the same sound. So let's do it again now with the understanding that was the context. To break it down, the main mod is controlling inside each of these harmers. These harmers are cloned. This harmer is the same as this harmer, but is slightly longer and has slightly more decay. And it is controlled by the blur time up here. So attack, decay. And the idea is that this is the reverb for the sound. Because here's the main guy. That sounded like a layer, but it wasn't. And then so this is the air portion. It's responsible for doing the things that I would normally do with delay or reverb to try and fill out a sound. But I realized that you could actually just do that with attack and decay settings. But let's talk about the actual main deal. The whole thing, both of these dudes are going into this big block that is a lot of comb filters. It's specifically comb minus, comb plus, comb minus, comb plus, doubled up. And then every one of these knobs is animated, but they're animated to be in a slightly different location. They're still going the way they go every time they go there in the same way. The macro never changes. But I just needed it to be cacophony, and it is. And then the next part of it is these resonance knobs, which when you're doing a comb filter, a resonance knob is essentially the feedback knob in a delay, which means that the lowest value is essentially it off. And those are all just activated and then linked directly to this one knob, which is just it on, which is being linked to this top page, which is out here being linked to this top page. And that's how you make that kind of thing work. It's also, so I want to point out that the sound began with these knobs. These knobs were here before the sound was. And it made doing things like this astoundingly easy. Because it's one thing to be like, oh, I can do that and link it up, and there it is. Another thing to get here and be like, wow, if I had made this whole apparatus and then make this whole apparatus, I can link them together and then do that. It's a bit, like, if you've ever been in that position where you're on a roll and you don't really want to break your roll, it's one of those roll breaking moments where it's better to have this kind of going than it is to try and make it later. Yeah. So, and then it gets compressed a lot. The nature of compression when I do individual sounds is usually just to even it out enough that like the action is representative, and then that is below 0 dB in a way that you can control. hence the soft saturation being engaged with a little bit of compression on the open end, because this would normally be a limit, and this is like a ratio 2 to 1 or something, 4 to 1. So not actually that much compression, but still a pretty hard limit in terms of, because that's what this dude's doing. And then, yep, so main guy is that, and then this dude's cloned to be that. So let's talk about the main guy. What I love about Harmor is whenever you go to a page and you open up this drop down, it shows you all the things you messed with, which is good because I don't always remember. But let's go down the list. In the volume, I am engaging unison index mapping, and this is to make it so that there's a stereo effect, but that they're not blending so hard as like just straight huge unison. I'm taking this a step further. I'm even engaging unison index on the actual thing itself, which is saying the middle voices doesn't have unison. Or rather, it doesn't have detune. It's not having this particular change in its position being applied. This is the harmonic unison pitch window, which is telling us how hard the unison detune will be applied per harmonic. So the higher harmonics actually have more unison than lower harmonics, and with a nice spread up in between. So that's the beginning of creating a complicated stereo image. Before we get there, actually, let's talk about this too. In other videos, I mentioned the randomness, and I haven't done that here too. Per unison voice is selected, and same for all maps. This means that when I engage a kind of random activity, and every one of these voices will have a different, like, random selection, randomly. So here's one of the ones attached to Z. Now, I knew the intensity of my automations going in, that like A, B, and C would be mostly cool. The first mod is the filter. This is straight up, there's a width, there's a cutoff, modded together with mod X. X, Y, Z represent mod A, B, and C in this case. So main mod, tertiary, filler. The tertiary filler though, so we have that, we have more unison engaged on Z, and then we also have the phaser engaged on Z. We have engaged on Y. Do I have this engaged on Z? Nope, that's Y. So I decided the phaser was the secondary mod then. And then unison was the Z. And it's true that I picked the core ones that do the most sort of damage to changing the sound, but it honestly could have been anything. I've heard plenty of examples of variations that were pretty simple stuff. And it's less that the thing is a complication or not complicated as it is that it's just different enough from what you're doing that you can tell. You can tell that there's a new thing, new element. Even if it's just fundamentally the same as what you're doing before. So automating all of these to keep it around to oops. And prism amount. So the prism, this is fun. When you see a parameter that's got this like plus and minus situation in the graph, what it means when you randomize it like this, because I do. Oh, this is unison. Okay, so actually this is unison index mapping. This means that the middle value here, because this represents the voices. There's 5 voices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These lines represent the voices. The middle voice, no prism, perfect regular pitch. Outside voices has one value that's this, and then this one is the opposite side. And what's neat about that as a thing is what Prism does is it just changes the pitch of a harmonic according to this particular map. And this is saying, cool, this harmonic goes up in pitch, this harmonic goes down in pitch. But if it's the opposite, then this will go down and this will go up. And if multiple voices of them are together, they'll phase together in a way that sounds interesting. It is the theory. I say the theory because I haven't like stared directly at doing that so hard that I can tell exactly what that does so much as I just do this kind of thing and just hope that it sounds more stereo. And then when it does, I move on. And that's essentially what happened here. Yeah, I'm putting together what I want to talk about next. Okay, so on top of doing the filter stuff, I also engaged the filter noise action. And the noise action in the resonance does special stuff. And I'm going to show you what it does in here. All right, so normal resonance creates just a loud spot kind of in the filter, but in noise mode, that goes down. And this is a random thing that's happening when it does this. And this is one of the things that is randomized per unison voice when you tell it to be. So I could have 2 voices in unison, zero all the stuff except panning. and you'll hear it be random, that the random is different on either side. That's a particularly powerful ability when you want to create even stereo on things. If you don't want stuff to lopside. So there's 5 voices of that, and all of them are different. They're also all kept quite heavily on the high ends of things, because what's happening here is that this is a separate sub. It has its volume automated to stay together, and that's what's keeping it rhythmically relevant, but I am doing this by way of harmonically generating it only down here and harmonically generating this only up here. This is like solving for n for separate subbing, because it's, in other examples, I would try, it's really hard to do the surgery of just replacing the actual low-end harmonic with the new one. But with this, it's a range, saying that like when you get down to the lowest low, there's actually more of this sub than there is when you go to high, and it just goes away. And it's not a crossfade, and it's not a filter. It's actually just being generated that way. It's really cool. So this whole thing gets cloned. Oh, I made my own filter shape, but this is basically a bandpass with like a shelf kind of together. You could do this with a regular filter. It would take a while, but that'd be neat. Oh, and one more neat thing. Okay, Prism has a superpower. That superpower is, when it's on, it has the ability to make its level more based on level of harmonic. So like this louder bit would be more Prism than this not as loud bit. But you have to put the Prism after stuff that's doing things. Because, for example, that's not doing it. But now if I put the Prism past the filter that's got the noise action, exactly what I just said takes place. That, and actually, watch this. If I put the blur after the filter, you can see it kind of smoothly, because the blur of, instead of it being the sharp on off, it smoothed on off. And here you can see the pitch doing the same thing accordingly. And that's what that value does. And you would want to do this because the action of regular, well, not with this shape exactly, but the actual, in real life, when you move a filter too fast past the value, you can hear it change pitch, because it's changing its phase while it moves around. Filters in additive land don't do that because they're not really filters, but if you want it to sound like that because not doing it sounds kind of fake and weird, that's how you sort of force it to happen. And also, this is how you force incredibly strange and future effects to occur. And I use this mostly as a light touch to make it so that a thing has just some amount of performing motion in the harmonics. It's not just rigid, yay, here's a note, here's some more notes of the note. That sure is a note. That was the plan there. So take this, copy it, put it up here. Make sure you link all the things, because the links are not copied when you copy them. I believe which ones are active are, but if not, then you'll have to come in here, make them active, and then link them all up again. And then once you do, they're the same thing, and then you can make some changes. And the changes that I made were that I did turn on the blur. And this is basically like if you've ever done snare surgery, where you link together the snippy, short, harsh first like bit of it, and then the slow, boofy, no attack tail. This is the slow, boofy, no attack tail. And all of the same parameters are still applied to it, and mostly it's just trying to find things that are kind of slightly different. I altered a few things, like the filter shape was just a slightly different shape. The alterations were designed to basically be like the charged version of the thing, but not to be so far away from it that it could be conceivably part of it when you heard them both together. Basically, I wanted to try and get out of this guy everything missing from this dude. Which, wow, when you hear it by itself, you can kind of you're just like, yes, that sounds like a doofy, dark, stupid, bandpass, basic, like 1999 jungle. Come on, guy, do some stuff. And all the stuff. It's got shiny, it's metal, but it's still harsh, and it's still the note. It's not got any of those problems, and you lay them together. Yep. And for sure, you would definitely want to write maybe more than one of these in a song that's like a drum and bass track that's not supposed to sound like a realistic individual bass player in a track, but instead 7 of them. But this is also a great shortcut to that solution where you want your sounds to all sound like they're the same. And it's pretty old advice to like clone a thing and make variations of it, but it's also somewhat more newer to be like, make one thing have enough variations in it that it is the clones without cloning them. And this isn't the first time I've tried to do this. This isn't the first attempt. And the thing that made this the easiest so far was sitting down and being like, okay, I know from experience that a sound that does all the things right has all of these things. Let's put them all here. And then make sure that we find stuff to put them to. And I feel like that like positioned and aimed my sound design work in this example way better than me just being like, I know I'm going to do this into the future, so I'm going to try and remember to care. It's a bit different, right? Anyway, if you have any questions about this, please let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and favorite, and subscribe, and all of that good stuff. Also, don't forget to check out the sale on lessons if that's something you're interested in, one-on-one over Discord or Skype, whatever you prefer. And as usual, have a nice day.